there's a new report out that is disastrous, and it's showing just how badly Americans are doing as a result of the economic recession and coronavirus, as well as the lack of congressional relief. So now, according to data collected by the Washington Post, millions of Americans are massively behind in their electricity, water, and gas bills, or their utility bills, as well as rent. So look, we talk a lot about the need for rent relief, but there's also utility bill relief that Americans could use. Now, it's actually been months since the last relief money from the CARES Act actually ran out. And, well, now, without that federal benefit of extra, that extra $600 from the federal government, as well as any lack of any more stimulus, or really anything to help regular people, regular workers, well, they're kind of screwed. And so people, again, they're not getting this stuff, and the numbers are just absolutely disastrous. We have a situation where an estimated 179 million Americans are at risk of losing their heat, electricity, and water. You have nearly half of all Americans that could literally return to the dark ages or like a third world country. Not because they don't have the infrastructure available, it's because they can't afford it. They don't have the money to do so. Now, look, the CARES Act sent a lot of money towards that, but as you know, Congress hasn't taken up a new bill. That money's been spent or has expired. It's run out. And now people are stuck without anything while Congress continues to not do anything, to gridlock. So now you've got states that have tried to fill the gap in, but so far only 21 states and the District of Columbia have disconnection bans in place. 9 other states are set to lose protections starting today, actually, and happening throughout the fall, according to the National Energy Assistance Directors Association, which means that you have 170 million people that might not be able to afford their basic utilities and will start getting shut off. Wow. This is happening in the so-called wealthiest country in the world, the home of the billionaires. It's absolutely unconscionable that this is happening in this country. So now it's not just that they're getting disconnected, of course. They're also racking up enormous debts that even if they're lucky enough to find work, which many people are, as the economy starts to slowly rebound, well, I mean, you still have a mountain of debt to deal with before you can even get hooked back up. Electric and gas debts alone, just to show you how bad it is, threaten to reach or exceed $24.3 billion by the end of the year, according to a new NEADA analysis released on Thursday, which is based on about 2 dozen states worth of regulatory filings. Nearly a third of adults say that they face difficulty meeting their regular household expenses, according to a most recent survey by the U.S. Census Bureau, just to show how many people this has affected. And yet Congress, what's Congress doing? Nothing. Specifically the Senate, by the way. Senate Republicans refuse to pass a coronavirus relief bill that addresses these issues. Oh, they passed a bill, okay, let's go back. The Republicans are trying to pass a bill that does really nothing for the states. Democrats had already passed something, House Democrats passed something back in May, the HEROES Act, that addresses a lot of these issues. Plus other issues that we have, like the post office, for example, running out of money. Republicans, done nothing. They have moved faster in a Supreme Court justice in trying to fill RBG's seat than working on coronavirus relief, which they've had months and months to do. Months. All right. And look, what's made the utility crisis so bad is, again, you've got the recession, right? But also the fact that Congress had not done any sort of moratorium on rents and utilities, the payments themselves. Now, look, a lot of states, of course, suspended collections and disconnections, of course, and late fees, but you still had the actual payment. And if you didn't have enough money after losing your job, you're SOL. And even if you had these federal payments, for example, like a lot of unemployed people did, that doesn't necessarily mean that you could afford both your rent, your mortgage, your insurance. If you've lost your job and lost your health insurance through your company and try to get it continue through COBRA, which a lot of people need for their medications, they wouldn't be able to necessarily afford all these bills. And again, even the people who are back to work after months, they're in the hole for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars in back utility payments that will now, again, start accruing late fees, and there will be disconnection since the disconnection bans are being lifted. All that stuff. And by the way, there's also back rent that people have to pay, and not enough money, again, for people to pay them, especially now that you don't have any sort of stimulus going to the American people. You had a one-time $1,200 stimulus check. And the end of those unemployment benefits, the $600, which was barely enough to begin with. And now you have none. And some states have adopted the Trump approach, which was $300. Again, still not enough to dig yourself out of that hole. And so what are you going to do? What is the American people? What options do we have? Not a lot. Now, Mary Grant, who oversees work on water policy and Food and Water Watch, said this, quote, I imagine if people accumulate a lot of utility debt during the moratorium and while they were laid off, it's going to be really difficult for people to catch up. You know what that also means? More economic slowdown, because these people are not spending money in the markets anymore. They're spending money to try to dig themselves out of a hole. Less than half of the country also, by the way, she points out, are protected from water shutoffs. Wait. What? So now people are not going to have running water at a time where hand washing is absolutely essential for controlling the pandemic. I mean, this is even worse. This is even worse than we even can imagine the situation. This is a crisis. This is a crisis. And then over the next month, by the way, another 26 cities and states are set to allow their protections to expire. Now, a lot of these states don't have the money to do so. That's why we're asking for the federal government to put forward additional spending in some of these bills. In any coronavirus relief bill, Republicans say, no, we're not going to reward, quote unquote, bad governance by sending them more money during a crisis. And so they can't use that money to help their people. That's what's going on here. And again, you've got Senate Republicans, you've got Mitch McConnell that have done absolutely nothing. Again, Democrats passed the HEROES Act. Republicans sat on it, and at the last minute pushed a skinny bill that, again, gave nothing to the states, one $1,200 check and $300 worth of benefits. That was it. Most of the problems are happening in the states, and if you're not giving the states money, then you're not really helping anything. But of course, the reason that Republicans' hair was on fire originally, and why they did pass the CARES Act, was in order to stabilize stock markets, which the stock markets are fairly stabilized now, and so they don't care. Now they're screaming about the debts and the deficits, and that's it. We're not doing anything. By the way, the article notes that nationwide, many states have faced a difficult choice in deciding whether to extend or terminate shutoff protections as the economy has started to rebound in some places. And of course, in the states that have saw a little bit of a rebound, it's because a lot of them have relaxed their coronavirus restrictions, leading to outbreaks of coronavirus. So there you go. It's amazing. All right. Power providers and other utilities also did commit to voluntary measures, including efforts making it easier for their customers to enroll in payment plans. Well, that'll help them. Yeah, I mean, if you got no money coming in, then payment plans not going to really do anything. I guess for some who are starting to rebound, again, payment plans are still added on top of mounting bills. So they're still in a gigantic hole. And the reason that they're doing that they're not doing any moratoriums or freezes is because you've got lobbyists. Local regulators have faced a barrage of lobbying on the part of utilities, which have sounded alarms that long-term moratoria may leave them unable to collect on Americans' ever-growing unpaid bills. Because I know that poor energy company is, they're just not doing very well. They got to have that money. They got to have that money. One of those groups, an Association for Energy Providers in Pennsylvania, said its August correspondence with the state said that it registered $403 million in arrears compared with $290 million at the same time back in 2019. In doing so, the lobbying group still urged the Keystone State to cancel its shutoff moratorium, arguing that circumstances have changed since March and other solutions such as payment plans would work better. Okay, but they don't have the money. What part of that do they not understand? People don't have money. You can't pay your bill if you don't have enough money. What do you want them to do? Pull it out of their ass? They don't have the money. They don't have it. Millions of Americans cannot find work. Okay? And look, I'm not saying that there are no jobs available. There are. And some of them are actually dangerous, more dangerous now because of coronavirus. And many of them don't pay enough to allow people to survive, much less catch up. We had a crisis beforehand where millions of Americans were still getting underpaid and not paid enough to survive. Now you've got coronavirus, and it's made it even worse. In many cases, you have hundreds of people that have to apply for the same job because there are not enough good jobs around. At this point, the American people need some sort of relief, not get through, straps thrown at them. Okay? We need another stimulus package, something that's a little bit more than a $1,200 check and some unemployment benefits. At the very least, for the American people, there needs to be a guaranteed $1,000 check retroactive to when the CARES Act expired. And believe me, that's my compromise position, as well as unemployment benefits. My real position is $2,000 a month UBI retroactive to March until we get COVID under control. Moratorium on rents and mortgages, complete freeze on those payments. Freeze utilities, bring back that $600 benefit, let people catch up. That's it. Again, my original position is pretty strong. My compromise position, still fairly strong. And of course, something that Republicans would never, ever do. But when it comes to aid to corporations, well, then they're all about it. All about it. Look, I know some people are asking, well, how are we going to pay for it, Jeff? Okay, how about we tax billionaires who paid nothing in taxes, as well as gained billions of dollars in profits during the pandemic? How about that? How about we tax people like Donald Trump, who paid $750 in taxes for 2 years, and nothing in taxes for over a decade? All of us paid more in taxes than Donald Trump had to America. It's absolutely disgraceful. We need action. We need something that's done. And look, there are programs out there that, even though, House Democrats have already passed things like the HEROES Act, they've been trying to do more. For example, they wanted to expand the LIHEAP program. And so what that does is that it covers energy costs for people who can't afford it, right? But it doesn't cover water costs. House lawmakers recently proposed funding to help increase that and make it so that that program covers water as well. Unfortunately, according to the article, it has, quote, not gained significant traction, even at a time when hand washing is paramount. Well, look, I guess it shouldn't surprise me that in a country where we can't even agree on wearing masks, we won't fund water to make sure that people can wash their hands during a pandemic. I mean, of course not. And now, by the way, we already have COVID cases back on the rise. It's increasing. It's increasing. We're back on track. And we're actually on track to have a terrible winter. You add 179 million people, or, tens of millions of people even, not being able to wash their hands, losing their utilities, having shutoffs. No, we're on track from Disastrous for a disastrous winter. Now, one state official at the NEADA described the situation as, quote, a cliff, which is true. The current system, he said, is just not designed to help that many people. Millions of Americans are screwed. And yet our politicians and the donor class with their lobbyists, they don't give a damn about it. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.